Hey guys, quick video today. We're gonna go ahead and search around this public land near my house, try to find some down dead wood for bow drill set. We got a little bit of rain earlier today, so I may have to let that dry, but I do have a set that I can demonstrate on. So you guys just stay tuned in, hit that subscribe button, and we'll go see what we can find. All right, well, stumbled across this dead cottonwood, or Populus angustifolia in the Latin term. This tree is actually, it's broadly leafed, actually has more of a D-shaped leaf. Along the leaf's edge, it's very sharply toothed. On the tips of the stalks, where the leaves will eventually grow, there are actually a couple glands that grow there. That's actually what will produce the cotton that the seeds are attached to, and in the fall will actually float down, and they can float for miles. But the bark of this tree contains psilocin, which is actually a more or less like an aspirin. Works great for aches and pains, headaches, migraines, stuff of that nature. Since this is a dead down tree, I'm going to go ahead and cut me off a limb and use that as a spindle. I prefer to use a poplar spindle or a cottonwood spindle along with a basswood hearthboard. So I'll go ahead and get that cut off, and then we will check and see if we can hunt down a basswood tree somewhere around here and get ourselves a hearthboard. Hey guys, I was walking through the woods and actually just ran into a morel mushroom. Wasn't planning on mushroom hunting today, but as you can see, pretty good sized one. Probably a good 4 inches tall or so. Kind of scouting around now to see if I can find any more anywhere else. Ended up getting a piece for the spindle. I'm going to go ahead and show you a technique that I like to use. Makes it a little bit easier when you're trying to shave down the spindle. So I'll go ahead and do that. You'll need your knife. So once you got your knife, you need to find you a good solid stump that you can use. Go ahead and take your axe head, hammer that in. Get that good. Now just make sure that your knife is in there good and solid, and I like to get it in there at least an inch, inch and a half. But now you can actually use this as leverage to shave your spindle down. Makes it a lot easier. Just pull your spindle up against it. knock off any knots that might be there. All right, guys, once you've got that shaved down, what you want to do, and I tend to start maybe an inch back so that I can get a tighter point. This is actually the point that will go into your socket for the bow drill. So start about an inch back, start shaving that down. You want that to be like a real sharp pencil. All right, now that I've got that shaved down to a point, I actually like to have just a little bit of a flat there. Otherwise, that point will actually dig in to your socket, which you don't want. That'll slow the spinning down, the friction down, so cause more friction. So once you do that, you want to go ahead and cut that down. I like to make it about 8 or 9 inches, so just a little more than the span of my hand. So we'll go ahead and cut that down, and then I'll show you how to do the friction side of the spindle. All right, guys, now that I've got that cut down, what you want to do is actually shave this down to like a dull point. Actually only start maybe a half an inch back, and you want to leave a good flat spot. This is actually the side that you're going to be using in your hearth board to create the friction. So the more surface area you have, the better. I tend to make my spindles out of a piece of wood about the size of my thumb. I have better luck with that. The smaller the spindle is, the faster it will spin. And I've found that a little bit faster speed over the pressure tends to work, at least with the woods that I use for my bow drill sets. So you can adjust depending on what type of wood you're using. Hardwoods, some hardwoods you might need a bigger spindle. The bigger the spindle, the more friction it's going to cause, but the harder it is to get it spinning once you get it into the bow. So you just kind of round this off and make it a dull point, because once you actually put this into your hearth board and do the burn in, it will actually round itself over. So you almost want it rounded to begin with. It'll make your life a lot easier when it comes to the burn in. All right, guys, that's pretty good. So now we will go ahead and try to hunt down ourselves a basswood tree, see if we can find a log that I can make the hearthboard out of. It's a softer wood, so I like to use that as my hearthboard. So let's go see what we can find. Ended up hunting down a basswood tree. Luckily, there is actually a downed basswood tree right behind this. But I wanted to show you guys some characteristics of this tree. When it's young, it's actually it's pretty smooth barked. Then it starts to gain these voids into the bark. There's, as you can see here, it's quite smooth on the younger limbs. They will actually eventually, it almost looks like little bugs are chewing holes into them, and that's actually where the splits start. The buds are usually red in color, and they alternate from side to side. The leaves themselves, they're heart-shaped, but they're asymmetrical, so there is actually a lobe higher on one side than the other. There's quite a few uses for this tree. The leaves themselves can be ate as greens. They have more of like a lettuce taste to them, especially when they're young. The red buds, boiled down into tea, is actually very, very good for a sore throat or mucus, cough, all that stuff. Takes care of a great deal of that stuff. So the flowers in the spring, they have not quite developed. It's still pretty early in the spring, but the flowers can actually be boiled down as in a tea also. The flowers on these actually put off a lot of nectar as well, so you'll tend to see a lot of bees in the spring around this and during the summer. The seeds themselves, they're little pebble-sized seeds, usually look perfectly round. Those can actually be ground up and used as a chocolate substitute. I've not tried it myself, but from what I've read and heard, it actually does have a very chocolatey taste to it when you grind that down. So basically, most of this tree is edible in itself. The inner bark has a lot of carbs in it, so you can eat that, and actually I've been told that has a very pleasant taste to it also. So anyways guys, I'm gonna go ahead and cut a chunk off of this downed one behind me, and we will go ahead and start making a hearthboard and see what the outcome is. All right guys, now that we've got our hearthboard and our spindle, we need to go ahead and look around, try to find a stick for the bow itself. I usually just use a straight stick, one that goes, I measure from my armpit to the tip of my fingers. That's usually good enough in length. That gives you a long enough draw on that bow. But also you don't want something necessarily with a lot of flex to it. That can actually mess you up as you start picking up speed with the bow drill. That can flex on you and bind it and throw your spindle out and mess you up maybe at the most opportune or at the prime moment that you need that speed. So anyway, I'm gonna look around, try to find a stick that I can use as the bow, and I'll start assembling it. and hopefully we can get us catch us a spark. Well, we got our hearth board, we've got our spindle, we've got our bow with paracord tied off. I'll go ahead and show you how to set this hearth board up. First thing you need to do, you need to cut you a notch into the hearth board. Go ahead and start about I don't know, 3/4 of an inch back. Cut you a cove in there. You want to stay at least an inch, inch and a half off of the edge of the board to keep it from cracking. Okay, you can go ahead and leave the bark on one side. The other side you want to go ahead and try to have halfway flat. And then what I like to do is cope it on the bottom side at a 45-degree angle. This gives it a little more air once you actually start burning that in. All right, first things first, you want to set your hearth board down. Make sure you have a piece of bark or something of that sort down on the ground to keep the moisture from wicking up into the hearth board. But go ahead and set that down. And then I like to go ahead and get my left knee way back. This will be different for you guys if you're right-handed. I'm left-handed, so I do everything backwards. But get your foot just up to where you made that notch. Try to keep it fairly flat. Take your spindle, pointed end up, go under and up. That way your spindle is on the outside of the paracord. Set that over the side. Oh, one quick detail. I like to carry around some beeswax in the top of my tinder pack. It's good for multiple things, but take a dab of that and put that into your socket. That'll act as lubrication and keep the friction down on the socket so that all the friction force goes towards the hearth board. All right, guys. Now, get that ready. Use your shin as a brace for your socket. Get up as close as you need to. Have your left knee or your right knee, depending on which hand you use, as far back as you can, and take full long strokes. Start to add speed in once you get going. Keep going until you see plenty of smoke. You'll see quite a bit of black coal starting to come out, and it'll start to resist on you a little bit. Okay, now that's pretty well burnt in. I'll show you guys real quick. It's actually rounded the spindle over, blackened it, and the spindle now matches your hearthboard, your socket that you cut into there. So now, next from that, and makes my life a lot easier to just use a backhoe Laplander, but a lot of people say cut 1/8 of a pie out. I cut 1/4 out. The wider it is, the more air that gets to it. And I stay quite a bit further from the center than a lot of people do. I actually pretty much just go on the inside edge of the socket there, and that tends to get enough airflow to it, and I have better luck with it that way. Okay guys, if you can see, I just grazed the edge of that socket. I made quite a bit wider pie piece out of there than some people do. Some people go pretty narrow on that. Like I said, the wider it is, the better luck I have with it. So it's up to your discretion how you want to do that. But now I believe we're ready to go ahead and try to see if we can get a coal. Same principle, make sure you got a dry piece of bark or something underneath it to catch your coal. Get your spindle back in there. And when you guys use that beeswax, if you do, make sure you don't get it on your friction end. If you do, pretty well ruins that spindle, or you at least have to cut a 1/2 inch or so off, because that will soak into the wood, and you'll have a heck of a time ever getting a coal from that. So make sure you always put that on the right end. I'll start with long, slower strokes and keep working the speed up, slowly adding pressure. I tend to add more pressure once I actually see some smoke going. Keep going full strokes and try to go as long as you possibly can. You want to build up as much of that black dust as possible. All right, guys, believe we've got an ember. Don't touch that right away. You want to let that sit and fester for a few minutes. That ember will start to grow. You can fan it, but don't blow on it. Your dust will go everywhere. I've done it. That's not what you want to do after you put all that effort in. As you guys can see, it's really starting to smoke. Just keep fanning that. Eventually you will see that ember glowing. You can see that ember sparking. You just kind of have to baby these embers until you get a nice big one built up. There you go. Now what you would do is take your nesting bundle and actually gently lay that on top of it. Take that, flip it over, and bunch it up. By that point, you can usually blow into that nesting bundle fairly hard to get a flame out of it. Well guys, thanks for joining me today, and I hope you guys learned something. If you have any questions, write those in the comments below. And if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I'm gonna have a lot more stuff like this coming out in the near future. And I've got some trips still coming up to the Boundary Waters canoe area. I'm gonna do some full-length videos on that. So you guys go ahead and click the like button and subscribe and share it, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.